whenever you want, from your home, office, or on the go. Log on now to ParlView at parlview.ttparliament.org.
Follow the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago on Twitter. Our call sign is @TTParliament.
The Speaker.
Almighty God, we give thanks to you, the creator of the universe, and humbly beseech you to direct and prosper the deliberations of the members of this house here assembled for the advancement of your glory and the trust and welfare of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Grant that peace and happiness, truth and justice may be established among us for all generations. Amen, amen, namaste.
Public Business, Government Business Bills, second reading.
Honorable members, the debate on the second reading of the following bill, which was in progress when the House adjourned on Monday, October 8, 2018, will be resumed. A bill entitled, An Act to Provide for the Service of Trinidad and Tobago for the financial year ending on the 30th day of September, 2019. Minister of Works and Transport.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, on the onset, let me say that today I just want to deal with the facts, and I'm not really in too much of bantering. Madam Speaker, and other distinguished members of this honorable House, it gives me great pleasure to contribute to this debate of our national budget, and in my second contribution since my appointment as Minister of Works and Transport. The budget statement was presented by the Honorable Minister of Finance, Colum Imbert, a financial blueprint which will chart us into fiscal 2018-2019 with the theme Turnaround. Madam Speaker, the Minister's presentation did not disappoint. He made it clear that his measures were going to take this country to a new level of economic growth. Madam Speaker, in September 2015, this government began the difficult journey of rebuilding and transforming Trinidad and Tobago towards long-term national development. The Honorable Minister of Finance under this government has been steering this country back on a pathway of prosperity, the pathway of economic development, which is not about the blame game, but one that is strategic to create an economy and environment to encourage and reward the participation of every citizen. Madam Speaker, while the past 12 months were not without their challenges, I can nevertheless report that as a team, this ministry has made considerable inroads, which has led us on a fulfilling the objectives of Team 2 of the National Development Strategy, namely promoting good governance and service excellence, especially for public sectors, and Team 3, improving productivity through quality infrastructure, the results of which have led to greater social and economic stability and development. By this, Madam Speaker, as we continue to grow and develop in this developing phase, the Ministry of Works and Transport, during this time in the process, has been successfully preparing and readying our infrastructure for the positive turnaround. It is with these exciting contexts of change, Madam Speaker, that I present the achievements and developments that have been accomplished during the past fiscal year. I now propose, Madam Speaker, to highlight some of the Ministry's development agenda for this new fiscal year. Madam Speaker, in 2017-2018, the Ministry original allocation for capital work was $820.4 million. This was later revised to $863.8 million. From this revised allocation, the Ministry had completed physical construction work on the ground valued at approximately $725 million, or 84% of the allocation. Given the cash flow challenges facing the economy, the Ministry received approximately $496 million, or 57% in releases, with another 27% on requests and transfers, a total of $230 million on transfers that were not received. Madam Speaker, as referred to in the Minister of Finance in the presentation, the National Highway Grid is at varying stage of implementation. This highway network through the Ministry of Works and Transport is fixed on assignment to make travel more affordable, more accessible, and safe. The highway plan will provide the national community with easy connectivity between urban and rural places and will ultimately ease traffic conditions, allowing travelers to get to their destination in a much shorter time frame. More important, it will create potential opportunities for commercial and residential activities, including prospects of job creation. Madam Speaker, let me now focus on some of the projects we have been involved in and their status, as well as the benefits to the population. Madam Speaker, let me first speak about the Churchill-Roosevelt Highway extension to Manzanilla. Notwithstanding some setbacks, the Ministry successfully overcome every challenge to the Privy Council stage in the obstruction of this project. Madam Speaker, Package 1A and 1B have commenced in September 2017, but it is public knowledge that this highway would have been challenged. The work on this highway have resumed, and an 18-month duration is still expected. So we're expecting to finish this phase of the highway within the next 18 months. On completion of this phase, secondary roads will be added to the network to ensure that we can use this phase of the highway, not a highway in the bush as was said by some members on the opposite side. It will be connected to the Komoto Main Road and will join the Eastern Main Road in Guayco Junction, while the other phases of the highway continue. This highway network, Madam Speaker, we see the highway grid moving and shaping new communities while connecting arteries of roadways that will allow time create opportunities for greater commerce and industries, and as the areas will be developing. Madam Speaker, this highway will create what we expect on the eastern seaboard of Trinidad and Tobago, the same effects that the Churchill-Roosevelt Highway and the Uriah Butler Highway is having for the people of the north and central and southern part of Trinidad. Madam Speaker, another part of this highway is the Valencia to Toco Highway. And again, the ministry would have started a program of work to connect the Valencia junction to the Toco Highway, where we would be doing in-house through our pure unit, starting in the next 2 weeks. I've heard in the presentation of the Honorable Leader of the Opposition that no work is being done on the highway. It was just talk. Madam Speaker, that is not true. Tenders are being evaluated as we speak for the Valencia to Toco aspect of the highway. And the residents, my information, the residents in that area are very happy, because when they drive through the area, what they're seeing now is the signboards of the route alignment, the designs, and the hope that the construction is going to begin within the next month. Madam Speaker, this highway is not just to create a fantasy island that some people are purporting. These highways will lead us to a ferry port in Toko. Madam Speaker, where we are with that ferry port? The ferry port, the conceptual designs are ready for handover to the Ministry of Works and Transport. We are in the process of working with the environmental management company to ensure that we have all the environmental clearances. Once that happens, the project will be going out for tender. What does that port do, Madam Chairman? Madam Speaker, sorry. Madam Speaker, that port will transform the eastern seaboard. And it is not just for the residents of Toko. Those three developments I spoke about will significantly benefit Kumoto Manzalena, Mayaro, Toko Sani Grande, as far as Arima, La Hoqueta, as far as Rio Claro, because what we're trying to do is to develop the eastern seaboard of Trinidad and Tobago. And I really do hope that the member for Kumoto Manzalena and Mayaro will come on board and help us to sell this project, because this is not a P&M project. This is a project to develop the entire eastern seaboard of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, why we want to develop the eastern seaboard of Trinidad and Tobago? Again, there's a lot of naysayers that why we building a port, why we building a highway. I don't know if the honorable members recognize that the Sandy Grande region and the Mayaro Rio Claro region, which we expect to benefit significantly from this project, is almost 35% of the landmass in Trinidad and Tobago. 35% of the landmass with little or no infrastructure. I don't know if the members in this House recognize that the number of registered businesses in Trinidad and Tobago, in these two areas, they account for 5.75 of the registered business. So you have almost 35% of the landmass, and all it accounts for is 5.75% of the registered business. The only area that has less than that is the Point Fortin, which is a borough, and is almost 25 times smaller than these regions. Madam Speaker, I can go on to point out that almost 77% of the workforce work for either minimum wage or below. 77% of the workforce. These statistics were taken out from were done from the Central Statistics Office and were presented into the development plan for the area. Madam President, I can also go on to say, sorry, Madam Speaker, that a significant amount of available land still exists in that area. But with infrastructure, the land will be accessible. And most important, Madam Speaker, the Toko area is the shortest and most feasible route to Tobago. That's right. It will cost 35% of the cost that we spend now to transport people from Toko to Tobago. It's less than 1 hour compared to 3 hours from Port of Spain. Madam Speaker, and this is why we recognize that there are challenges in getting to Toko, and this is why the government have decided that the first thing we have to work on is the infrastructure in the area. So this is not a fantasy island. This is a well-planned project that will benefit the entire eastern seaboard and Tobago. Madam Speaker, another major project that the Ministry of Works has been engaged in over the past year is the Curab Interchange. Where's that project now, Madam Speaker? Madam Speaker, that contract was awarded to China Railway at close to $200 million less than the original estimate, at a cost of $346 million. Where we are with the project, the contractor is on site. and work have begun. There had been some challenges with some of the landowners. I think it was 37 properties that had to be acquired. It came down to about 9. My information this morning is that coming out of a meeting yesterday with the landowners and their attorney and the commissioner of valuation, which took place yesterday, is that the landowners have recognized that the government is giving them a fair value and they want to finalize their negotiations by tomorrow. It took a little while to get there, but this government was never about putting people off their land or paying them anything less than the market value for the land. And finally, after several lawyers have been fired, several people would have been changed from the negotiations, including who, and I must pay credit to him, the member for St. Augustine, who tried his best to bring some sense to the situation. After a lot of them were removed, finally we would have reached a point where the landowners have recognized that the government would have been very fair in treating with them. So I'm hoping that this project will continue apace, the benefits of which will be, again, this is not a P&M project. St. Augustine, the entire east-west corridor on both sides of the corridor, St. Augustine, as far as Komoto, Manzalena, people come from Sandy Grande every day in traffic. This project is for the national community. It is not a P&M project. Madam Speaker, I also heard talk that the Solomon Hultroy Highway, nothing is going on. I think that's the furthest thing from the truth for the members on the other side who actually comes from that area. Madam Speaker, the history of that project would have been spoken about several times. I will not go back there. What I can say is that this government, recognizing the fact that we had to give local contractors some piece of the highway, split the highway up in about 12 packages. That allows local contractors to be able to compete with the international contractors. So far, with the competitive tendering, the local contractors have been able to win every single bid put on the table. Where we are right now, 3 packages have been completed. Another 5 are in the award stage, meaning tender complete, negotiation complete, ready to award. There are just 2 packages are right now being tendered. It's expected to close in about 2 weeks, and there's just 2 more packages to go out. Work on that highway is going full pace ahead, no allegations of anything, and the country is getting value for money. The price of the project have come down significantly, right? And most important is that the local contractors are being able to participate on that highway as the main contractor for the first time. Madam Speaker, I just want to talk a little on the Diego Martin interchange. Again, a project that we had not heard a lot about, but this is a major construction project about to be kicked off in the Diego Martin region. It's the Diego Martin interchange construction for vehicular and pedestrian bridge. This project is out for tender right now. This project, the tender is supposed to close on the 8th of November. And once the evaluation is completed, we expect to have boots on the ground on this project by January, February next year. This is another major project. And the location for this is in the vicinity of the Diego Martin Highway and Mount Coco Road, a major project for the west of Trinidad. Madam Speaker, the Maruga Fishing Port and the Maruga Upgrade Road. The designs, again, have been 90% completed. We are working with the EMA on this project. This project has two aspects, the onshore and the offshore. The offshore consists of the marina facilities and also an area for the Coast Guards vessels. So if there are any instances on that coast, the Coast Guard vessels will be able to berth in that marina. On the onshore side, they will have accommodations for the fishermen, which includes a house-to-house Maruga fishing facilities, onshore component, outfitted with engine, locker rooms, wholesale and retail market, and vessels and net repair. There will also be in that area a fish fry area where people can go and enjoy the fresh catch from the fishermen in the area. This is something that this government is creating. One is coming in the Chagaramas area, one in the Maruga. We feel every citizen in Trinidad and Tobago should be able to enjoy a certain standard of living that could be second to none. And for the people of Maruga, your facility will be as good as or better than any facility in Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, under our PURE unit, PURE would have done several jobs in this country: road rehabilitation, bridge construction, but 3 projects that I want to highlight that the PURE unit is doing as we speak is, 1, the Sealots overpass, the Sealots walkover. Madam Speaker, that project was spoken about since 2011. I'm happy to say, Madam Speaker, that that project is about to be handed over to the government so that the residents of Sealots can use that facility. Madam Speaker, it took a little longer than expected. However, we are at the stage now where the contractor will be handing over the facility, and I expect that facility, Madam Speaker, that overpass to be a landmark overpass, welcoming people to the city of Port of Spain. And I urge the residents of the Sealots to please use the overpass. It costs a significant sum of money. I remember when I spoke about that here about a year ago, the member for Oropuch East, when I spoke about the price, that the bids were from 17 million to as low as 10 million, and we awarded it for 10 million. I remember your comment very well. You said that, okay, we will have cost overrun. Madam Speaker, the project came in on budget.
Wow.
It was 10 million. It came in on budget, and it was the longest overpass, meaning it was a 48-meter span compared to 36 meters, which we would have done previously. Madam Speaker, under our drainage program, I did come to the Parliament in the mid-year review and asked for some extra money to do the silting. I did suggest then that we were attempted 298 projects. And again, I remember the member for Tabaki was a little bit concerned if we would be able to accomplish that in the financial year or in the calendar year. And I did say we would attempt it in the calendar year. Madam Speaker, I just want to compliment the staff of the Drainage Department. The Drainage Department have moved their work up a level, and they were able in the financial year to complete 230 of that 298 projects. And I think that was a significant improvement on their behalf. We cleaned rivers throughout Trinidad. There were projects in the north, 86, in the south, 47, central, 83, and in the east, 82. As I said, 230 projects was accomplished. And if I may say, and I hope the members on this side don't get vexed with me, the person in the south was able to accomplish all the projects and got an extra 10. So for those members on the other side who I keep here saying that we ain't cleaning no rivers on your side, that is not true. You got all the projects and 10 more. I hope the Minister of Finance didn't hear that. Madam Speaker, let me talk a little on Tobago. The projects that the ministry would be doing in Tobago in the next fiscal year. Madam Speaker, the ministry will be looking at 3 major projects in Tobago. 1 is the Tobago Marina. 2, a new PTSD terminal in Tobago, in Scarborough. And 3, the new Tobago Airport Terminal building. Madam Speaker, the Tobago Marina. Proposals were invited in May 2018 on the open market, included international in the concept of publishing a public-private partnership. The closing date was August 28, 2018. Invitation for proposal to design and finance and bill. 2 proposals received, 1 local, 1 international. Cabinet appointed a committee to evaluate the proposals and to report on what the offers are and whether we have an interested party. The committee has been conducting the evaluation and is expected to submit a report within the next week. So very soon we will have a marina in Tobago. What are the benefits of that marina? The marina is part of a large-scale tourist plan. The marina will provide a safe haven for vessels during the hurricane season. For those who know about the yachting industry, a marina in Tobago will be in high demand because of the advantage of being out of the hurricane belt. Well, Madam Speaker, the marina in Tobago have attracted a lot of interest, and it is something that we are looking forward to. The onshore businesses will be developed through maintenance, service, food service, and security. At present, the marina will enhance the surroundings, real estate and development, and more hotels and guest houses. The areas for development will provide jobs opportunities for the people of Tobago. Madam Speaker, the new airport terminal building in Tobago. Madam Speaker, I'm very happy to announce that NIDCO have been given the all clear to pursue this project with guidance from the Ministry of Finance. This project is going full pace ahead. We anticipate that airport to accommodate Category 3 aircrafts and a projection of 2.5 million passenger capacity. Jobs will be provided for residents both in the construction and upon completion of the terminal. Another project that we're looking forward to. And Madam Speaker, the PTSC terminal. I have been to Tobago on several occasions, and they have always been clamoring for a proper bus terminal in Scarborough. Okay, my city member asking for a second one, but let me build one first. Madam Speaker, the tender for that terminal went out into the newspaper last week. Once the tender is closed and an evaluation takes place, the start of the Tobago terminal will be in the first quarter of 2019. Finally, Tobago will get the terminal building that they were looking for. How much time I have there? Madam Speaker, I can't speak in a budget debate and don't speak about the Sea Bridge. So I will now focus on the much spoken about Sea Bridge that has caused a lot of agony for both Trinidad and Tobago. Yes, it has. Madam Speaker, when I assumed responsibility for the Ministry of Works and Transport in November 2016, I was faced with a looming crisis which was about to explode. I refer to the TTIT operations at the Port of Port-of-Spain, a subsidiary company of the Port of Port-of-Spain, charged with the responsibility of managing the Sea Bridge. Madam Speaker, I do not want to get into who was right or wrong, who say or who didn't say, or whose fault it was at this stage. That was the subject of 3 investigations, the most significant being the JSC of Parliament, which went into depth as to what took place on the Sea Bridge. I will speak a little about the JSC as we go on, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I identified the problems. I accepted that it was my responsibility to make sure this problem will be fixed once and for all so that it will never happen again. Madam Speaker, I identify the problems to be, 1, a lack of vision and planning for what we want to accomplish on the Sea Bridge. 2, a lack of proper maintenance of the vessels. 3, insignificant training for locals to handle maintenance issues that arise in the use of the vessels. And 4, a lack of accountability and responsibility for the operations of the sea bridge. Madam Speaker, I identified the way forward, and I did inform the country that this will not be a quick fix, but the problem will be solved. I proposed solutions for the problem. Madam Speaker, the solutions were: 1, getting back a competent technical team to manage and maintain our fleet of vessels. This team of professionals will train our citizens so that eventually they will be handing off responsibility to maintain and upkeep the functioning of the vessels. The team of experts are already on board and are aware of all their obligations. Done. 2, the government will replace the old vessels with new fast ferries with a replacement structure in place so that we will never be saddled with old obsolete ferries again. It is for this reason that the TNT Spirit was replaced with the Galleon Passage. Further, 2 brand new customized fast ferries have already been ordered to be delivered in 2020. And further, there is a tender closing shortly for the lease of an additional fast ferry to add to the existing fleet. Madam Speaker, if things go as expected in that tender, we will have a 3rd ferry to join the 2 ferries that are operating now. The intentions is that once the 2 fast ferries have arrived in 2020, the lease for the interim ferry will be terminated and the Galleon Passage will be relocated to operate from Togo to Tobago. The 2 new fast ferries will be operating from Port of Spain to Tobago. When all is in order, the TNT Express will then be sold. 3, the sourcing of a new custom-built cargo vessel built to suit the specs needed for Trinidad and Tobago stakeholders. Very shortly, the government will be tendering for this vessel. In the short term, there is a cargo vessel which is operating on the Port of Spain Tobago route. This vessel has recently come off dry docking and is making the journey in approximately 6 hours. The vessel transports all the cargo to and from Tobago, and when fully loaded, only utilizes approximately 60% of its capacity. In addition, about 120 persons can be accommodated on board. The Port Authority continues its effort to search for a more suitable cargo vessel, which, when available, will be immediately engaged. In the meantime, the government will continue to use the service of the existing cargo vessel to ensure that the cargo required between the 2 islands are met. And 4, and Madam Speaker, this is something that, in my opinion, I will be pushing very firmly for: the removal of the responsibility of the sea bridge from the Port Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, placing it under a new company with a separate board. The new company will have the skill set required to have an efficient and effective and reliable sea bridge and inter-island ferry sea transportation system. Right. This new company will also be responsible for the water taxis traversing the San Fernando to Port of Spain route. This separation of duties will enable the Port Authority of Trinidad and Tobago to reorganize itself so that it can compete and be on par with the upgraded ports of the region. Good. Madam Speaker, we are all aware that the Galleon Passage has started its commercial sailing to Tobago. Right. This will be taking the available seats back up to 1,500 to and from Tobago if required. The cargo vessel is working in a very acceptable manner at about 60% peak cargo requirement. I am pleased to say, Madam Speaker, that the sea bridge is therefore back to normal and will be getting better and better as we make this turnaround. No, you're wrong. Madam Speaker, no, don't tell them.
Minister of Works and Transport.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I would now like to draw your attention to a time and issue in my appointment as a minister. And I refer here to the Joint Select Committee, Madam Speaker. I can only say, as a person who has always stood up for what is right and in order to protect my integrity and name, this incident questioned whether I wanted to continue in public life in serving my country. Madam Speaker, again, I refer to the Joint Select Inquiry on land and physical infrastructure, on an inquiry into the inter-island ferry service with specific focus on the procurement and maintenance of ferries. Madam Speaker, this investigation was really called to see if the minister or the board of the Port Authority was in any way corrupt or at least found to be in dereliction of duty. Madam Speaker, there were allegations made by politicians, by union leaders, and by so-called stakeholders, and by so-called marine experts, all trying to convince the population that the minister or the board had conducted wrongdoing in the operations and procurement of vessels. In the Joint Select exercise, we were grilled and questioned. Several persons were called, including the said persons who were promoting the allegation. Everyone had the opportunity to participate and bring whatever material evidence in support of whatever narrative they were trying to navigate. Madam Speaker, this is the first Joint Select Committee that any sitting Prime Minister caused himself to be subjected to and been questioned by the JSC. In all, Madam Speaker, there were 3 investigations in this matter. All of this because of the fictitious and malicious accusations by people opposed to this government of promoting for their propaganda for self-interest. This was a period where I had to witness my family go through the hurt and humiliation, hearing that I, as a minister, was corrupt and in some way was influencing the contract for my personal benefits. Today, Madam Speaker, I have with me here a copy of the report of the Joint Select Committee. This was laid in the Parliament. Sorry.
Minister of Works and Transport, we don't allow display here.
Sorry.
And member for Caroni East and Couva South. I remind you all of Standing Order 53. And to let you all know, if I'm hearing you, you are in breach of that standing order. Minister of Works.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as I said, I have a copy of the Joint Select Committee report. I went through the entire report, all 800-odd pages, and there is no finding of any wrongdoing by this minister or a speck of evidence that this minister did not follow all protocols or was in breach of any of his duties. What was mentioned, admittedly, in the report is that the minister should give his direction to the management in writing. I just want to remind the population that at that point in time, there was no board in place, and therefore the minister had the authority to speak direct to the management. Since the appointment of the board on April 11, 2017, the board assumed full responsibility for the operations of the port. Madam Speaker, the JSE, however, found several questionable practices and procedures, none of which indicated any misconduct or breach on the part of the minister. One recommendation was that a forensic audit by the relevant authority into the circumstances surrounding the involvement of Ms. Nari Alfonso in the tendering exercise of the Galicia, as stated in the public inquiry of the committee held on September 5th, 2017, and further recommend that a forensic audit be conducted into all circumstances surrounding the tendering exercise. There has been several other recommendations made in order to improve the operations and procurement at the port, all of which will be taken on board, including that of the forensic audit to be conducted in all circumstances surrounding the tendering exercise of the Superfast Galicia. Today I stand here and tell all those people, through you, Madam Speaker, who was spreading the fake news and false allegation, trying to damage me and this government. Shame on you. You have hurt a lot of innocent people. Madam Speaker, through you to Ms. Alison Lewis, who would have endured as much as I did during this period. On behalf of the government and me, I apologize to you and thank you for your dedication to service. Madam Speaker, seeing that I have some time, the Ministry of Works has so much work to do. I just want to go into a few more areas where we accomplished a significant amount of work. Madam Speaker, in the bridge program, 62 bridges were identified for restructuring. Madam Speaker, in 2018, 2017, before 2017, 15 were completed. In 2018, 5 were completed. In 2019, another 4, including the Camden Bridge, will be completed. I'm expected that the Camden Bridge will be opened sometime later on this week. Madam Speaker, Cabinet has also approved a further 12 bridges which started in the 2018 period, and 25 bridges went out at a design stage. So our bridges program is well on track, and we expect to have that rolled out shortly. Under the Coastal Protection Unit, Madam Speaker, the Coastal Unit, Cabinet renewed the Coastal Protection Program for 6 years, from 2016 to 2022 at a cost of $370 million. And I must say the Coastal Protection Unit is involved in 6 projects right now, with additional 6 to be started throughout the country. Again, it is not in PNM areas, it is throughout the country. The Ministry of Work works in every area. And I think the Minister of Finance could confirm that. The Minister of Works The Minister of Works could confirm that, because only yesterday he was complaining to me that 2 roads in his areas wanted paving, and I was paving in Central. Punopia. Madam Speaker, the Minister of Finance. Madam Speaker, the San Fernando Waterfront Project, another project that the Ministry of Works is involved in, and I can say that we are responsible for the widening and upgrade of the Lady Hales Avenue to a dual carriageway, repairs of the seawall along King's Wharf, and the establishment of a broadwalk along King's Wharf Central and South Node. Madam Speaker, this project is at the design stage, and very shortly the people of San Fernando will see work going on the San Fernando waterfront. Madam Speaker, under our traffic management program, Madam Speaker, on this point I am pleased to report to this House that Trinidad and Tobago in 2017 have recorded its lowest road fatality rate in 30 years. And to date, this figure continues on its downward trend under my leadership, and my objective is to achieve a road fatality rate of 0 in Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, again, under this program, we have the Sealots walkover, which, when completed, will enhance the waterfront area and will serve not only the people who use the walkover, but also the traffic who has to stop on occasions for the crossing of the pedestrians. Madam Speaker, the Labrie dry docking facility, a lot have been said about that. This is another project charged under the Ministry of Works and Transport. And there have been questions as to why a Labrie dry dock. Madam Speaker, approximately 31,000 vessels pass within 25 nautical miles of our waters. Evidence this traffic is poised to increase when the expansion of the Panama Canal is finally completed. Trinidad and Tobago, geographic proximity is right at the tip of South America and will make the Labrie dry dock facilities the perfect resting spot, providing maintenance, repairs, lodging for sea travelers, medical service, and a host of other maritime amenities to create a booming economy in La Brea. Madam Speaker, this is charged at the Ministry of Works, and I can tell you we are very excited about this project. Madam Speaker, the licensing division. This is one area that I, as Minister, am very proud of. We are transforming the licensing division after years of frustration by the people who use the license office. The Caroni facility is up and running, and I must say, in the last year, we were able to achieve major upgrade of information communication technology, modernizing business processes, use of centralized data center for processing, a secure driver's permit utilizing technology with key state-of-the-art security features, online validation of driver's permit, online validation of vehicle records. And as of yesterday, 81,000 people visited this site and checked their vehicle records, 81,000. So people are using the technology, and what this allows is less people having to go to license office. Decentralization of certified copies. We have 6 areas now in Trinidad that prints certified copies. When I came in, there was one. I think it was somewhere on this building. And if you were in Tobago and you wanted a certified copy, you have to go and order it and wait 2 weeks to get it. Certified copies are printed now within minutes in 6 stations in Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, finally you can go to the license office and pay with a Links card. Strange enough, you could have bought doubles with a Links card in Trinidad and Tobago. And it took years before we could use a Links card in the license office. Madam Speaker, very soon we will be rolling out the fixed penalty and demerit point citation notice system with the red light enforcement camera and spot speed camera system. I must say I'm looking forward to the rollout of that program by the first quarter of next year. I know the staff are pushing for December, but again, I don't want to just put the population on notice. My information, and I'm very confident that by the first quarter of next year, policing on the road will not require a policeman anymore. 24-hour surveillance on the road for speeding motorists. Madam Speaker, the Port Authority, if I'm just to say 2 lines for the port is about to do a presentation to the Cabinet for the restructuring of the Port of Port of Spain. I'm pleased to announce that by the 12th, the scanners on the port will be operationalized. Those are the fixed scanners, and in November, we will have the mobile scanners operating on the port. This has been over 5 years in coming. The Maritime Division have been working on the wrecks. Maritime have awarded a contract for the removal of 15 wrecks in Area 1.
Minister?
Sure.
Your original time is now spent. You're entitled to 10 more minutes to complete your presentation if you wish. You may proceed.
Madam Speaker, I can go on, but I would want to go to a next level. However, under the PTSC, I just want to let the population know that the PTSC is doing its part in public transportation by improving the fleet of vessels. And Cabinet has approved the purchase of additional 300 buses, which will come online at the PTSC for both Trinidad and Tobago shortly. And that will help, Madam Speaker, with mass transportation in a significant way. No. Madam Speaker, I just want to speak about 3 things that the Honorable Leader of the Opposition spoke about in her presentation. Madam Speaker, the opposition leaders called out a list of items that if someone doesn't understand Trinidad politics will think that those matters are questionable performed by this government. I will address 3 of them that pertains to the Ministry of Works, because if you allow fake news and a narrative to be created and you keep repeating it, people start to believe it. The opposition leader spoke about, 1, a highway, a $400 million highway Madam Speaker, I admit we are building highways, and one package is $400 million. We are building highways in the east, in the west, in the north. We are doing the overpass, and Tobago has its fair share going on. Madam Speaker, this 400-meter highway is built by a local contractor at a cost of $80 million per kilometer. 80 by 5 is 400 million. Madam Speaker, what is important to note is that when the previous government was building similar highways with some of these same contractors as subcontractors, they were billing it at $120 million per kilometer. Go and calculate the South Highway. Madam Speaker, the question is not a $400 million highway. It's where that extra $40 million per kilometer was going. Right? Madam Speaker, so I will not allow that $400 million highway to say that that is anything questionable on this government. We can defend our position. Madam Speaker, the opposition leader also spoke about $13 million for Cabo Star. Madam Speaker, what is $30 million for the Cabo Star? Where is Cabo Star Bridgeman? Madam Speaker, yes, a $13 million letter of credit was established for the Cabo Star. But the arrangement for the Cabo Star is that you cannot draw down on the $13 million letter of credit, which included mobilization and I think it was 3 months rental. The vessel one had to be here. We had to be satisfied with the vessel. Then you would get the mobilization, and as the vessel worked, you get the monthly payment. That letter of credit, we stand by that letter of credit. The vessel came in, it is working, and Bridgeman and the Cabo Star are being paid. So there's nothing untoward about that. Compare that $13 million, Madam Speaker, to the Superfast Galicia. When that was engaged, a check for $18 million was cut and deposited into international whatever ICL account, intercontinental account, before the vessel leave Gibraltar. Wow. Right? Compare that, and by the time the vessel reached the Trinidad and start to work, the entire $18 million gone. So we talking about $13 million where we get value for $18 million when the boat started to work, because the boat came here and stayed for months without working, and we were paying for the boat by the day. By the day we were paying. That is the difference with that. The opposition leader also spoke about $20 million for Ocean Flower. Right? No, this is TT. It was $3 million US. Madam Speaker, let me debunk that again. Right? Let me debunk that again. A letter of credit was established for the Ocean Flower on the pretense that when the vessel comes to Trinidad, is working satisfactory, then you have a drawdown on it, your mobilization and your monthly rental. That contract was terminated. And Madam Speaker, no money was drawn down. And I just have a letter from First Citizens Bank, which I would like to read into the records. We refer to, and this is from First Citizens Bank to Ms. Marcia Charles Elborn of the Port, standby letter of credit. We refer to the subject as established by the Port Authority of Trinidad and Tobago on behalf of the Ministry of Works and Transport for the beneficiary of Bridgeman Services Group, LP, in connection with the charter agreement of the vessel named Ocean Flower 2. To date, on June 16, 2017, and hereby confirm that the standby letter of credit expired on September 17, 2018. The letter had been expired, no drawn down, no money for the Ocean Flower. So, you know, we must put that out of the window that the government lost any money. Madam Speaker, I want to speak about, however, the opposition leader did say that this government likes boats. Madam Speaker, we buy boats and we know where our boats are. Right now, the Galleon Passage is working. The TNT Spirit is on its route to Tobago, and the Galleon Passage is ready to take 800 passengers. Madam Speaker, this government likes boat. The previous government loved helicopters. That is a fact. Madam Speaker, I have here from National Helicopters, right? And I just want to read again. Breach of contract, claim filed against NHSL by Vertical Aviation LLC, former Milestone Aviation. Madam Speaker, what this is a contract signed in May 2015 by one Joshi Mahabir, General Manager of NHSL, right? Madam Speaker, what this refers to is a helicopter that was leased in 2015, where this government, or the last government, rented for approximately $120,000 US a month. Yeah. We paid so far $2,489,000. The helicopter never came to Trinidad. What? Up to now. Never came to Trinidad. Why? It could not be certified in Trinidad. And right now, we are being sued by this company for $27 million US. Madam Speaker, National Helicopter is now legally exposed by this deal made under the previous government, and it now falls on the Minister of Works and Transport and the government of Trinidad and Tobago to explore a way in which to neutralize this grave financial exposure to National Helicopter Services Limited. Madam Speaker, we like boat, but we know where our boat is. Could you help us find this helicopter? Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Member for Talkeet.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, I'd like to begin my presentation by saying that this has been one of the better budget debates, and for very good reason. I want to congratulate our political leader and leader of the opposition, Mrs. Bisessa, and alongside her, my colleagues who have debated in this budget for a very specific reason. It is one of the debates in the last 3 years in which the opposition has been able to present and has presented an alternative development agenda for Trinidad and Tobago. And I think that is very important, because the discussion in the public at the moment is who has the right plan to take Trinidad and Tobago into the future. And the recovery and reconstruction plan that was outlined, and the vision outlined by the leader of the opposition, and which is being elucidated and expanded upon by other members on this side, is a clear indication that the opposition has a superior plan to that of the government for taking the country forward. There is no doubt in my mind that Trinidad and Tobago requires a recovery and reconstruction plan, but not just any plan. In this parliament, we have spoken about the need for a shift, or paradigm shift, if you may, new paradigms, in terms of attitudes, in terms of values. In other words, a cultural revolution of a different kind is required. So we need a recovery and reconstruction plan that is underpinned by a major cultural shift in attitudes, values, and behaviors. But more significantly, a recovery and reconstruction plan that makes a giant leap away from the dependency on oil and gas as our major sources of revenues. And one discerns from the presentation of the Honorable Minister of Finance that the government is still relying excessively on what happens to oil and gas prices in order to take this country forward. And as we have seen, if oil prices fluctuate on the downside and gas prices similarly, what can happen to our expansion plans and our development agenda? It can all be derailed. So that by continuing to put their eggs in that one basket, what they are doing is threatening the security, economic security, and sustainability of the economy in the future. And the government must understand that developed and developing nations, in their quest for more friendly human environments, they are now beginning to understand even more deeply, to appreciate and to react by way of their own policies regarding energy, the interdependency between man and nature. In other words, they're recognizing that human survival is not just about what human beings do, but how we live and respect nature in this interdependent existence. And what is happening, while we continue to hope that oil prices will rise and gas prices will rise and what have you, the world is moving away from fossil fuels to renewable energy, including energy from wind farms, which is beginning to be a big matter. And I think that the government cannot ignore and should not ignore these trends, which are really no longer trends, but facts. And if we continue to ignore them, we'll do so at our own peril. I would just like to respond to 3 or 4 points made by the Minister of Works and Transport. Minister, I heard you say that the budget in terms of your development projects was $863 million last year, but that you had spent $725 million. In word. So therefore, and that's the bonnet point. Therefore, it means to say that there are a lot of contractors who are owed a lot of money at this point in time. And one of the things that have always bothered contractors is the amount of money that has been outstanding. So it'd be interesting to know how much money is outstanding to contractors. But when I examine the actual figures in the development estimates, I saw that if you added the consolidated fund and the IDF together, you had really $820.4 million. And the amount revised as spent was only $364.5 million, which is just about 40-something%. So maybe there's something that you got to look at there. In addition to that, while you spoke about the major highways that you are developing, I want to again ask about the situation with the completion of the Debe to Faizabad highway, the Grand Trace to La Brea section of the highway and on to Point Fortin, because if you're going to develop a dry dock facility, the road, existing road, Southern Main Road there from Otahiti onto La Brea cannot take the kind of traffic that will be passing through there onto La Brea. Therefore, it's imperative, I believe, that we should be putting focus and emphasis first on developing that segment of the highway from Grand Trace to La Brea, even if you were to do what we were doing, which was to develop 2 lanes of the highway so that you can take also some of the traffic that destroys productivity all the time coming from Point Fortin to Mosquito Creek on a morning. And thirdly, there were plans to expand into 3 lanes the highway from Bhagwan Singh's in Chaguanas right on to Freeport. And I have not heard anything said in the plans, because what happens is that you have 3 lanes coming down up to Bhagwan Singh's, and then they get into 2 lanes, and from there, it is a very bad situation going down. In addition to that, Mr. Minister, the People's Partnership government had planned to build a number of large parking facilities, especially in the area of Chaguanas, Park and Ride, to reduce the amount of traffic coming into Port of Spain. And there's an area right there on the Endeavour flyover, which is available for a park facility that can house in about 6 stories, about 2,500 vehicles, which can take that off the highway. But you have to combine that with the dedicated lane for buses and maxi taxis. And that can be easily developed if you take the shoulder of the road, do a little bit of expansion, and in that regard, you only have 2 little bridges in order to expand. And those were plans, I must tell you, that were part I know you said it, part of it, but I'm saying that it is necessary and something that has to be done. While you spoke about solving the water taxi matters with Tobago, Mr. Minister, I don't know if you're aware that 3 out of 4 of the water taxis from San Fernando to Port of Spain are not operational at this point in time. And on one quick point on the La Brea project, dry dock facility, I think the population is very anxious to know what is going to be the shareholding structure. The Prime Minister announced that he's going to have a different kind of shareholding structure. But with what has been happening with countries who are indebted to the Chinese and the manner in which the Chinese have moved to take over their facilities in lieu of them not being able to pay the debt, it is very important that we do not sell out our birthright to the Chinese by engaging in these projects, and we do not know how they are going to be serviced in terms of debt. So what is the shareholding structure with respect to those particular projects? And finally, you raised the point of the licensing office. I'm glad you are proud of the licensing office in Caroni, because that has been a flagship project of the People's Partnership Government. It has been a people's. But I want to say to you that we need to correct certain things. You know, I went to get my license renewed. And I had neglected to realize that at age 69, you have to get your eyes tested and you have to get a medical and what have you before you could get the certificate, the license renewed. So when I went to the desk, the person told me, I said, well, where do I have to go now and come back when? She said, well, no problem. If you just look outside there, you'll see 2 containers, and there's a doctor there, and there are people there with cameras and whatever. Except, Madam Speaker, what was interesting is that they didn't do any kind of examination. They asked you 2 questions and asked you to look at the wall, and they wrote a certificate for you. And I think that that is something that has to be looked into. I think it is fraudulent to be giving people certificates, medical certificates, in 2 containers there, and have a secretary there and have a doctor who probably pre-signed a number of medical certificates and giving it to people, and you do not know whether these people's eyesights are proper or whether they are medically fit. I think that is wrong. And we have to deal, we must deal with this. We must deal with it. And I just wanted to say that. And finally, you said,
well-minded to be guided by Standing Order 47, please. Member for Tabaki.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You talked about 300 buses that you are going to order and what have you. I hope that you know that the procurement procedures will be in place and that they will be scrupulously followed in the tendering of these buses. And that one of the things you're going to look at is that you're going to have a standardized fleet, because a standardized fleet is a very important thing. When you don't have a standardized fleet, then you have several suppliers and you have the whims and fancies of these suppliers. But even as we talk about PTSC, Mr. Minister, I don't know you have been looking at, as I have been looking at the number of buses that are supposed to be on the full fleet of PTSC, but the number of buses that are really in the PTSC graveyard. We used to have a graveyard in Waterfield once of PTSC buses. And I think that because of the poor management and the poor maintenance, preventative maintenance programs at PTSC, the population is being cheated of having an efficient public transport system in terms of those buses. Madam Speaker, no nation can live on deficit spending forever. You're going to go bankrupt. If you cannot pay what you borrow to spend, if you cannot show that you're going to earn what you want to spend, eventually you're going to end up in bankruptcy. And you cannot give yourself a false sense of security by relying on your ability to draw down on your HSF and your foreign exchange reserves without adding to those funds, adding more than you are taking out. You cannot live with the belief that oil prices are going to rise because of some geopolitical events and hope that there is war in one part of the world and that Iran is going to be in some problems and so on, and that oil prices are going to rise. That is not how you run a country. That is not how you run a business. The nation of Trinidad and Tobago, I want to say this morning, is not too small to find its own competitive space among the larger nations. Only if we are prepared with the vision to take this country forward, and only if we are prepared to make what I like to describe as an instantaneous mental leap into the future. We need to make this leap and identify the niches where we can allocate our intellectual and financial resources for our medium to long-term benefit. And this is what excited me about the presentation of our political leader. It was different, it was futuristic, it was identifying niches, it was a plan that will result in a sustainable economy and a bright and secure future for Trinidad and Tobago. We are too bright in this country. We are too industrious a people to be left behind. We are only being left behind in this country because we are being led by a PNM of old ideas, old thinking, dated minds, or what has been described as stale minds. Stale minds. This is why, I repeat, the vision presented by the leader of the opposition has sparked, ignited a sense of hope in the population that has lost hope and confidence in the future. The UNC's vision is one that is aimed at reinventing us to become relevant in terms of what we do today and in the future by way of education, industries, manufacturing, and culture. The PNM, in its 3 budget presentations, has not given to this country a clear roadmap that suggests economic sustainability and, above all, competitiveness. It is therefore, in my view, not insignificant that the youth in particular, the cynicism of our youth, the cynicism has engulfed our youth population, our young people, and that the anger, anxiety, and frustration that is now manifesting itself in violence, domestic included, social deviancy, and mental health issues is because in the last 3 years, more so than ever, young people are not seeing a bright future. They are losing hope, and they are growing cynical. And cynicism is a dangerous thing in our young people. You see, my colleagues on the other side keep speaking about good governance and good governance. But the sole objective of good governance cannot and must not be directed to the hoarding of political power. It is this crave for hoarding power that leads to the birth of dictatorships. And we are seeing elements of that in the PNM in the last couple of months. It is this urge and craving to hoard power that leads to a divorce between the people and the leaders in the country. And that is dangerous. That is dangerous. The strategy of the PNM over the last 3 years has centered itself on cutting expenditure, increasing taxes, utilizing loans, drawdowns on the HSF to fund its deficits in the budget. But it has not, I repeat today, it has not demonstrated in a significant and tangible way, except by announcements, how it is going to increase revenues and improve very vitally our foreign exchange reserves, which has gone down from a high during the People's Partnership time of almost $12 billion to $7.6 billion. US. It has gone down. Madam Speaker. Our import cover has been reduced from as high one time of 13 months to now 8 months. And while my colleagues on the other side said this is not a problem, I believe that it is dangerous for any government in which oil prices can waver to extremities to believe that we will be okay with 4 months cover. I think that is dangerous in an economy where oil prices can waver to the extremities. So I ask the question, what will be with the current rate of depletion of our foreign exchange reserves, what will be our position in the next year, next 2 years, next 3 years, next 5 years? There's a related question that I might ask. It's bothering me, and I may as well speak about it now. What is the net foreign exchange that you expect to receive for oil exported versus fuel imported? You are going to export your 40,000 barrels of oil, and you're going to import fuel. What is the net foreign exchange that you are going to gain or you're going to lose? Because you see, it is important. It is important to look at some very important figures that we should look at, which relates to what countries in our region are paying for fuel and paying for different kinds of fuel. For example, if you look at Dominica, Dominica is paying 75 cents per liter of gasoline, US, which amounts to $5.91 TT. that is as high perhaps as we pay for premium gasoline. Guyana is paying $1.03 US per liter, which is about $7 TT. St. Lucia, $1.14 US. Jamaica is paying $1.28 US per liter, which is $8.70. And Barbados is paying $1.57 US per liter, which is $10.67 TT. They are paying in Barbados $1.96 for a liter of diesel, which is $13.32. When you multiply that by 4, you're looking at $53 a gallon for diesel, and you're looking at about $42.50 a gallon in Barbados for gasoline. And if you look at it carefully, on the average in the Caribbean, it's about $1.17 per liter, or $7.95 TT per liter for gasoline. And I ask that for a reason. What is it that the Trinidad and Tobago consumer is going to be expected to pay when we begin to import fuel, and the government says our commitment is to remove the subsidies, and we leave it now to the market to bear the price? These very countries are importing their fuel, and they have to sell at these prices. What will happen in Trinidad and Tobago? What will be the real price of fuel to the customer given the Caribbean experience? It is an important point, Mr. Minister, that you have to address. And you gave an assurance that you're going to continue to subsidize. But can we trust you? Yeah. We cannot trust you. Can we trust you?
We are right.
The reality is that if you have taken a policy position to remove the fuel subsidies, you are going to remove the fuel subsidies, and the country is going to have to bear a very big burden sooner or later in terms of the cost of fuel. So I sincerely ask, what is going to be the real cost of fuel to the country? And of course, I need not go now into the impacts upon cost of transport, cost of production, and what have you, and so on. Madam Speaker, I want to ask again, and I sincerely ask the government to ask of itself the following question, which I think is a kind of the question that will inspire the correct vision for recovery and expansion in this country, the kind of expansion and vision presented by Mrs. Bissessa. And this is the question: what it is that the world needs which Trinidad and Tobago can produce? We can't produce everything. But we must ask the question, if we are to be a niche country, engage in international niche marketing, what it is that the world needs, that we have the resources and we have the ability to produce. Comparative advantage. And, we go back, therefore, to the blue economy. We go back, therefore, to the circular economy, which we spoke about. And that is where we can have the comparative advantage and produce the kinds of things that the world needs. But we are not asking that question. Very quickly, people may laugh at my 3 examples I'm about to give. But Dr. Tiwari mentioned about our chocolate in Harrod. That's excellent. It shows that we can develop an international brand. So our chocolate industry can be expanded. But what are we doing to really help the people who are producing chocolate in small amounts in Grand Couva and in Tabaquite? Mr. Chattagoon in my constituency of Tabaquite has about 25 tons of cocoa beans in bags stacked up in his place there that he cannot market overseas. If you add value to that cocoa rather than exporting the beans, what is the sense of saying we have the best flavoring cocoa in the world and we cannot turn that by adding value into it through processing in our own country and really earn foreign exchange? That's the kind of instantaneous leap in terms of our mental abilities that I'm talking about. That is where I think that the government has to now engage in a different kind of partner environment. And the environment for our entrepreneurs has to be created by the government. We have to stop exporting our primary products and add value to our primary products here. The other area was peppers and the processing of peppers. Okay, sure, you had problems with Carney Green. What? Carney Green, and you closed it down. But the world is asking for peppers, and we have the best tasting pepper in the world, which is scorpion. And what are we doing about it? There are so many byproducts can be made out of pepper. But what are we doing about it? What are we doing about it? What about our exotic tropical fruits and the processing of those exotic tropical fruits? Avocados, sapodillas, kaimit. You know, these exotic tropical fruits is an area where we should be going into exotic vegetables also. Madam Speaker, what is wrong in this country is the ease with which people are capable of doing business. The bureaucracy that frustrates people who want to produce, people who want to do better in this country. And this is why, in my respectful view, our many trade institutions with so-called professionals have to step up their game. They have to step up their game. We are only talking about developing and developing and developing, and we will stay as a developing nation and never become a developed nation until we begin to think and behave as a developed nation. And that is what the vision of the UNC is all about. In my respectful view, therefore, our trade institutions, who should be developing markets, helping our producers to build their brands, and are partnering them with international companies, they have continued to fail us. They have continued to fail us. The UNC had made its embassies abroad really trade missions. Trade missions. Therefore, we need to have a paradigm change in that regard also. So we must revamp these institutions, refocus them, and they must be given performance mandates.
Good. Excellent.
We have
Excellent.
too many educated people in these institutions writing papers, writing documents, analyzing, but not translating that into commercialization.
Good. Good.
And commercial projects. We win awards in this country for our horticulture, for our fashion, for our chocolates, and we celebrate those achievements. But the failure of the PNM has always been to move us into commercialization. And we can do it. We can do it. Don't tell me we cannot do it. We have the brilliant example of Sasha Cosmetics, an outstanding example of our people's ability and an entrepreneur, Mr. Maraj's ability to move to the international stage by niche marketing. A small country does not necessarily mean that we cannot compete internationally, but we have to have a government that sets the climate and provides the support and the business environment and the business culture that causes people. Singapore is a small country, but Singapore has been able to find its own niche. You know, stale thinking, that's what we have in this country. Stale thinking leads eventually to economic and by extension social decadence, which is where we are being led by the PNM. PNM stalwarts will argue, for example, that it took strong leadership to close Petrotrin. But it's becoming clearer and clearer as we go day by day that this decision and the many implications was not fully thought out.
Correct.
Was not fully thought out. And that is why the narrative of Petrotrin is changing every day. But, you know, I say to you that the PNM is painting a picture of milk and honey for former workers, or so-called former workers of Petrotrin, and hanging the carrot of sandals and the Labre dry docking facility with the Alutech smelter as the alternative. I wanted to ask this question. You closed down Caroni also, and you promised that on the basis of distribution of lands and support you're giving them and so on, you were going to have an agro-processing revolution taking place in the country.
Coming soon, coming soon.
What has happened? What has happened to your narrative? What has happened on agro-transformation? Because the question has to ask itself, you're sending all these people from Petrotrin home. How transferable are the skills of Petrotrin workers? How employable are the admin staff at Petrotrin? How long will it take someone to get a job? How long will the package that you're going to give them last when they have to pay off their mortgages, continue to support their children, and when part of that package will be taxed also?
Correct.
How long? How long? You know, what has been the experience of the 700 workers who lost their jobs at ArcelorMittal? You know, we are not calculating the impact of this, you know.
Suicide.
When 700 persons lost their job at ArcelorMittal, I remember that the industry analyst then said that 2,100 other persons who supported, who got jobs in support industries and sectors from Arcelor also lost their jobs. So the ratio was about 3 to 1. If we apply the 3 to 1 ratio with Petrotrin, you're looking at 20,000 persons. And if you take 20,000 persons and you multiply by 3 in a family, you're looking at 60,000 persons. The impact of this is about 60,000 persons plus. When you withdraw $1.4 billion, I'm taking out 1/3 of the $2 billion they claim in wages and so on as pension funds and what have you. When you withdraw $1.4 billion of spending, wages in that particular area, you have the potential to create ghost towns. That is unless you also have programs to develop the skills of these people for the new industries. But I see no human resource development plan articulated by the government to do that. So how are these people going to fit into the dry dock project? How are they going to fit into the Alutech project? How are they going to fit into the other projects? You cannot just say that these persons are 50 years and over and they are moving to retirement. People don't retire. I am 69 years old, going on 79. I don't intend to retire.
Look at veteran Diego Martin.
Every person, no matter age, has got a barrier to your contribution to your country and to productive contribution. And today, we have an aging population with about 170,000 people, what you call over 60. You want to tell me you're going to just ask all these people just to park up and do nothing? No, you can't do that. You have to bring those people into the productive stream. And that is something that we are not even thinking properly in this country. And that's why we in the UNC spoke about the silver economy. What are you doing that intellectual power that you have in your so-called retired population when they can make a valid contribution to the development of your country? Mr. Speaker. Madam Speaker, the government is focusing on mega projects, whether it be construction or manufacturing. But you know, we need to build up our small business sector. The small business sector can be an important source of employment, but it can, for us, be an important source of import substitution. Yeah, they say think big, but I'm saying think small also. Think small. Import substitution. You know how many industries, small industries can be set up? If we look at models that have existed in other parts of the world and set up small industries where 10, 12 family members or communities can begin production. It can happen. It can happen. We have become so energy dependent that really we have neglected our small business sector. We have neglected it. I want to suggest, for example, that the University of the West Indies look again at its business management program and introduce courses that are not just going to teach you about how other people do business, but how you can get into business.
Correct.
There should be a business incubator at the University of the West Indies where every year we can begin to process to launch at least 5 to 7 businesses. You know, when I used to teach at Roy Tech in the University of New Brunswick, joint program at Roy Tech, I used to teach a course in small business management. And I will tell you that there are at least 4 businesses I can go to now that will launch in that classroom by students and that are successful today.
We perform.
But that is the kind of thing that has to happen. You've got to link your education system to the development of your economy.
Correct.
And not just produce people with a degree, with a certificate. You know, I really, you know, I'm amazed at the amount of entrepreneurial talent we have in this country, but we must develop the entrepreneurial environment. You know, take, for example, cassava. If you go to Brazil and you visit an organization called Embrapa, which is one of the world's foremost research organizations in agriculture, you will see the multitude of products produced from cassava. Multitude of products produced from cassava. And here in Trinidad, you know, we have the land, we have the soil, we have the type of cassava that could grow. But Have we linked, for example, and decided that National Flour Mills should change its paradigm from simply being processing wheat that they bring down here to taking cassava and mixing it with flour and creating a new brand of flour?
Correct.
And really getting the farmers to produce the amount of cassava that we need to produce. Coconut. Coconut. At one time I counted 17 products on a shelf, different products made with coconut, right? Can be made. So we need to, again, rethink companies like National Flour Mills, what they are doing. Or new companies set up. The government spoke about the fishing port in Maruga. That's very good. We need to set up a fishing port. But what about the existing ports? What about the existing ports? Have you seen the condition of those ports? Have you visited recently and seen the condition of those ports? Have you seen the condition of La Fillette? Las Cuevas? There was a whole story in the newspapers about it.
Correct.
Have we seen Ottawa? Yeah. Claxton Bay, Otaheite, Calibe, right? What are we doing about that? What are we doing about that? And is it just about having our people fish, or is it also about adding value to their catch? Adding value to their catch. What has happened to a shrimp processing plant that once existed, I believe, in Cedros? What has happened to that?
Fish farms.
Where have all these things gone? We are importing tilapia from China, I understand. Tilapia from China, and yet we have the red variety of tilapia that can be grown here. We have land, we have water. How come we are not developing the ponds in the communities that will help people in 4 months have tilapia that can bring to the table? Why are we not just saying, you can't import tilapia from China? We are going to grow our tilapia here, and Nilan Masi and all those other places will have to buy the tilapia from our farmers. Why? Why can't we do that? You want to take strong decisions? Then mandate that a certain amount of produce be bought by the local groceries from your people. And we can produce it. I will take you to an acreage of a restaurant owner in Trinidad who is producing all his seasonings, exotic seasonings, and all the exotic vegetables that he uses in his foods in his restaurant in an acreage of land behind his house. Very, very good production. Why can't we do it on a more large scale? What is preventing us? Because we have a government that keeps selling the idea to the population, don't worry, everything will be all right, oil and gas is there. It's wrong. Hold on. You know, we have had recently this whole impasse with the trade union movement and the pressures they are putting on and the court matters and so on. You know, I want to respectfully hope and sincerely hope that we are not seeing a government that is on the path of busting unions in Trinidad. I hope so. I hope we are not seeing a situation like that is arising. And I wonder whether that is what prompted, I believe, the Minister of Trade to say yesterday when she was speaking, and she thanked the chambers for their understanding and support to the government to close Petrotrin. Right? I hope that we are not seeing a situation where you have government versus people. The last time that happened in this country, we had 1990. You can only push a people that far, and then the people will refuse to fall off the cliff and react. And we have to be considerate in our approaches to governance with the fate of our people. We have to be very, very careful, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if I were to find an adequate word to describe the budget presented by the Minister of Finance, it will be deceptive. And the meaning of the word deceptive is that which gives an appearance or impression different from the true one, or misleading, tending or having power to cause someone to accept as true or valid what is false and invalid. In other words, The Minister of Finance wants people to believe that he and his government are caring, that they are compassionate, that they care for the poor and they care for the vulnerable. This budget, in my view, is the epitome of duplicity, deceitfulness, and reveals a government that cannot be trusted. This duplicity is revealed by the attempt of the government to show that they care by raising the allowances to the differently able, and so on. I applaud that. The differently able have to get more. Listen, when you have to deal with differently able people and poor people and so on, you'll understand how little they have to survive upon and why they must have more. And Madam Speaker, he does so on the premise that the money saved from the fuel subsidy is being redistributed to the poor. Madam Speaker, that is a real way to try to fool people. But you know, he had neglected to tell the population. Honourable Minister, sorry, Madam Speaker, sorry. Sorry, Honourable Minister, sorry. The Minister of Finance, he thinks that people are gullible and that crumbs will pacify their suffering. He didn't tell the population that the greatest amount of fuel used in the country was super gasoline. He didn't tell the population that the majority of cars that run PH in the country use super gasoline. And that without those PH cars also people will be stranded all over the place. So that what you have effectively done, you have given it one hand and taken back with the other hand. That's what you have effectively done. The Honourable Minister of Health, for example, he spoke about the availability of drugs and so on. But he didn't say that under the current expenditures, of the $630 million that was allocated for the purchase of drugs and what have you, only $500 million are spent. And that is why so many people cannot get drugs in the country and they have to go back. So those very ill people now have to go and utilize this extra $100, $150 they give you, you give them in order to buy the drugs that they haven't been getting in the country. So you give with one hand and you take with the other hand. That's why I say it's deceptive. That's why I say it's deceptive. The poor have to travel, Madam Speaker. The differently able have to buy medication. They have to do that. Madam Speaker, I don't know in which world the Honourable Minister of Health lives. But, you know, if you are a member of Parliament, like so many of us are, you will know the amount of people who come to your office and say, I couldn't get my medication. I couldn't get my medication and I need $60 to buy this. They come and ask you, what do? You have to take the money out of your pocket and give it to them. You can't leave them stranded. I already raised the issue. How long is the subsidy on fuel going to last? How long is it going to last?
Until we rat.
The spike in transport has already gone up. You know, Curep to Chaguanas has risen by $1. You have in Point Fortin the taxis for Maxiac for 2 days now. They are not transporting people, right? Because the price is hitting them, and they are standing on the side of poor people, right? But you see, the problem with my Honourable Minister of Finance is that he needed to engage in this kind of give and take because his government has lost favor with the population. Yeah, and he's trying single-handedly on that side to pacify a population that has characterized his government as uncaring. That is a fact. He's trying. And then to compound it all, as if to say, I really care, he says, no further taxes until 2020. But he's telling you that after 2020, he's going to raise the taxes on you. Can you trust a government like that? Can you trust them? You can't trust them. You can't trust them. You see, because Mr. Minister, I'm going to ask you some questions. Are water rates going to be raised?
Yeah.
Are electricity rates going to be raised?
Yes.
Property taxes are going to be collected, $252 million of it. The government has now indicated through your fellow minister in the ministry its intent to bring taxi drivers, doubles vendors, bacon shack vendors into the tax net. The wider amount. You know, the last time a member of the accounting fraternity talked about doubles vendors, Several doubles vendors were robbed in this country when they said double vendors making millions. Doubles vendors were also shot and killed while they were robbing. You know, we got to be very careful with how we speak about other people because we live in glass houses and those people don't live in glass houses. And they're exposed to the elements. We have to be very careful. You cannot fool all the people who now consider you untrustworthy. You say one thing, but in your heart you know you are going to do another thing. If you really believe that taxi drivers are going to hold their fares with a 25% increase in super gasoline, then you're living in a fool's paradise. You're living in a fool's paradise. Because with a public transport system that cannot meet the needs of the people, the private sector has to take up the slack. And they will not be in a position to subsidize the public. They will not be in a position. The public is going to bear the brunt of this 25%. You see, the whip of the PNM is coming on hard on the backs of the people. And you're seeing signals, WASA, TNTEC, TSTT. Already the Minister of Public Utilities has said that WASA has 2,000 more workers than it should have. You know, the government has clearly announced a policy of cutting transfers and subsidies in line with IMF prescriptions. It has shown that it intends to maintain a budget of $50 billion. So who knows? Very soon that 1.8 billion to 2 billion WASA subsidy will have to be cut. And the only way to cut it is to cut people or raise the price of water in the country. Already, WASA is doing a correct thing.
Honourable Member, your speaking time is now spent. You're entitled to 10 more minutes.
Thank you.
Complete.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you. So that's the only way it's going to happen. And one of the things you must know, this PNM government have no qualms about sending people home. No qualms about that.
They love that.
Right? Unlike the United National Congress, and before it, the United Labour Front, and the People's Partnership Government, who have always been a Labour-friendly government, the PNM is an anti-Labour government. Anti-Labour government, anti-people government, anti-human beings government. Big business. The Minister of Finance and his colleagues, they keep parading this narrative that the woes of the country is a result of the 5 years of PP governance. But I would like to ask in all sincerity, who made the bad decisions at Petrotrin? Who was in the government when those decisions were made? Who began to build a new admin building and abandoned it after almost $300 million was spent there in Point of Bear, with a structure that's now left to the elements? Who paraded, who presided over the millions of cost overruns in Tobago at the financial complex, the National Library, as if that was nothing, as if that was nothing. The PNM makes a huff and a puff about Victoria Keys. Can you explain, Mr. Minister, can you explain why the housing project being done in St. Joseph by Emil Elias has already suffered significant variances? In 2016, the project was estimated at $145 million for 160 apartments. Recently, the project went up by $47 million to $192 million. The sod was not turned in 2016. The project only began in April 2018. 31% increase. Why? Why is that variation in that project? Why? Why is that variation? Now, since coming into government, the PNM has been talking about local government reform and the empowerment of local government. And we have been promised legislation, but unfortunately, thus far, it has not been laid in Parliament. In the meantime, local government corporations continue to be starved of resources, and through what appears to be a deliberate policy, local government is being made dysfunctional. Productivity is low in local government because labor cannot be properly utilized due to a lack of materials, due to lack of money to repair equipment. Valuable capital resources are being not being utilized at corporations. They are parked up, trucks, backhoes, and so on. At the Sipara Regional Corporation 3 weeks ago, they couldn't buy diesel for the backhoe
Serious?
So the guy was working on a street and he said he had to go back because he just had sufficient diesel to get back to the yard. And if he continued to work, and he had worked for two hours. People are coming to work in these corporations and they are not able to do nothing. They work for 2 hours. The decentralization that you promised is not taking place, even though a very comprehensive facilitation of development bill was passed in this parliament, which would have given powers to local government to take over some of the functions of town and country in terms of simple developments and what have you. The government speaks one thing and does another thing. You must not trust this P&M government. As it stands, like so many institutions that are collapsing or have collapsed, local government has now been brought to its knees by the P&M. I pity the councillors who must face public abuse because of the ineffectiveness of the Ministry of Local Government. Local government has been deemed first responders in terms of disasters. But what will they be able to do if their equipment is not functional? If their backhoes cannot go out there with 1 or 2 skid steers, they'll be able to do anything? I want to tell the Minister of Local Government that being a minister is not about scoring political points and public relations. It is about performance, efficiency, effectiveness, and delivery. As it stands, our regional corporations appear to have positional authority, but without resources, they have no power to make a difference. Why can't, for example, the Ministry of Local Government open up a couple of government quarries? For example, porcelainite quarries down in Erin and Palaseco. Why can't you open up some of those quarries that will allow you to get porcelainite material in order to fix a lot of rural roads in south and central Trinidad? Why can't you open up oil sand quarries in Guapo and allow the corporations to mine the oil sand using their own equipment so that you can get the kind of material you need, Mr. Minister of Works, in order to do some of this work? Mr. Minister, since 1968, I have been in construction. And I had a company with my father, and we used to build the roads where the heavy, heavy equipment will go in to drill. And if you go back to those roads, you'll see that the base material is porcelainite material from Erin, and the quarries there with oil sand, and those roads are still standing. So that we can, if you can't get the bitumen, you can't get the asphalt and so on, why not in the rural communities at least give the people a better road, give the local government corporations the right to go and mine that material so the people can get some kind of roads and make themselves, their lives a little better and improve the quality of life? Why can't you integrate your national self-help program with the Ministry of Local Government by them providing to the people the oil sand and material, porcelainite material, to make a difference? Madam Speaker, you know, in the review of the economy on page 41, it said that economic activity in the corporation will go down further, a decline for the fourth consecutive year, by 3.3% in 2018. It went down 4.2% in 2017. And this is dangerous, very, very dangerous, because if you cannot excite your construction sector, then you're not going to be able to provide really great many jobs in the country. And you're going to also affect your GDP. And when you affect your GDP, and your GDP which has already fallen over the years, you're going to affect your debt to GDP ratio, which is standing at a dangerous 60.9% at the moment. So, Madam Speaker, you know, there was a survey done by the Trinidad Express, Solution by Simulation, on September 8, 2008. 46% say the economy is in crisis, and 28% describe it as a major problem. That is 74% of your population not believing what you are saying about the economy. When people do not have a belief in the economy, it means they're losing confidence. And the most dangerous thing for an economy is for people to lose confidence in the economy. Because when they are losing confidence in people who are put there to manage the economy. And people have lost confidence in the government of Trinidad and Tobago. But the Express editorial of September 8th is very telling. And I want to just read it into the records. Most stunning data provided by the poll is the abysmally low level of public confidence in such vital institutions as the judicial system, public service, the police service, the financial sector, health institutions, and all of which, according to the poll, enjoy a lack of confidence. A lack of confidence. In fact, it says it enjoys the confidence of less than a quarter of the population. Less than 25% of the population have confidence in the institutions in this country. That is dangerous. And then the editorial continues. When not even the president, an office holder, potentially above politics, can attract the confidence of a clear majority, we have to admit to the comprehensive nature of the dysfunction. Madam Speaker, no country can prosper in an environment of such an all-pervasive distrust. Where people put minimal trust in their institutions and leaders, cynicism can strangle even the best of plans, says the Trinidad Express. So the battle lines are drawn in this country. They are drawn between the people and the PNM government. Drawn between the people and the PNM government. That is where we are at this point in time in this country. Madam Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to be part of this debate. And again, I congratulate everybody on this side for presenting an alternative development agenda that has value for Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you very much.
Member for Tobago East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, before I go into my contribution, please permit me to just recognize some of the young ladies from St. Jude's who are here today with a caregiver. The young ladies have been doing quite well and excelling in their academics and other vocations. I want to let them know publicly I'm extremely proud of their achievements. Madam Speaker, thank you for giving me the opportunity to contribute to the debate on a bill entitled An Act to Provide for the Service of Trinidad and Tobago for the financial year ending the 30th day of September 2019. Madam Speaker, this is my fourth budget debate, and I thank God for continued strength and guidance as I serve the people of my beloved country. I thank my family, my constituents, Parliament staff, all officers of the Office of the Prime Minister, Gender and Child Affairs, Central Administrative Services Tobago, and the National AIDS Coordinating Committee Secretariat, as well as my support team at the Ministry and the Constituency Office for their assistance and prayers. Madam Speaker, the book of Ecclesiastes tells us that there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the sun. Thankfully, by God's grace and through the work of the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Planning and Development, the nation of Trinidad and Tobago is now poised to enter into a new season. This PNM government has safely navigated Trinidad and Tobago out of a time of corruption, waste, and mismanagement. And under the astute leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, Trinidad and Tobago has seen the dawn of a new season. Madam Speaker, the theme of the budget speaks to the new season we are in. Turnaround describes our improved economic and social conditions. Turnaround symbolizes the hope and commitment of this government to work with the people of Trinidad and Tobago to reverse those negative social and economic trends which pose a threat of becoming a burden to future generations of Trimbagonians. Madam Speaker, our children, Mr. Deputy Speaker, our children and our children's children are set to benefit immensely from the fiscal measures and policies of this PNM government. While the opposition under the guidance and leadership of the member of Superior never wavered in the attempt of creating division, discord, and hysteria, the Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley-led government has quietly and consistently focused on doing the people's business. And today we can confidently boast of entering a new season, a season of growth and development. Mr. Deputy Speaker, political analyst and retired lecturer Winford James, a proud product of Tobago East, noted, and I quote, "The Rowley administration has managed to compose one of the more positive budgets I have seen in some time. And this has left me with a good taste in my mouth. The 2018-2019 budget is one of mostly good vibes, end quote. We, Mr. Deputy Speaker, have truly entered into a new season. Trinidad and Tobago is in a time of the great turnaround. And again, I want to commend the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Planning and Development. Before I go into my full presentation and report on the achievements of the various departments in the Office of the Prime Minister under my remit, please permit me to speak to the people of Tobago, and in particular the people of Tobago East. My fellow Tobagonians, I admit we face some tough times. But while we have experienced our fair share of challenges over the last 2 years, and despite the inconveniences we would have endured while the government worked to resolve the issues on the Sea Bridge, we can't deny the fact that there has been growth and meaningful developments taking place on the island of Tobago and in Tobago East. My fellow Tobagonians, we can't deny the fact that there are a number of completed, ongoing, and planned projects and programs that we can celebrate. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in early 2016, I approached the then Minister of National Security and member for Point 14 for his support to get a number of projects done in Tobago and in Tobago East. Today, I can proudly report the following. 1, the construction of the Roxborough Police Station is well advanced and will be completed in this fiscal year. While the construction of the Old Grange Police Station is progressing as planned, the demolition of the Roxborough Fire Station building will commence this week, and construction of a new modern facility will begin in this fiscal year. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I may not go around the country all cocky and boasting with a bullhorn, but I can confidently say that I've consistently advocated for and on behalf of the people of Tobago. Mr. Deputy Speaker, for the first time in years, the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service will have a batch of trainees in Tobago, a batch of 52 Tobagonians, 37 males and 15 females commence training this month. The current batch of trainees are housed at the Argyle Community Center, which has been outfitted by the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service. Through meaningful collaboration, quality accommodation for up to 80 persons has been made available through the Argyle Village Council and the Tobago House of Assembly. It is my hope, Mr. Deputy Speaker, in 2019, training opportunities will be afforded to the 80 persons that the facility can accommodate. And when the new fire station is constructed in Roxborough, that station can serve as a dedicated training base for Tobago recruits. Through the provision of training in Tobago, the Tobago Division of the Fire Service will be able to improve service delivery on the island. My fellow Tobagonians, there are things that we can celebrate. Mr. Deputy Speaker, at present there are no dedicated petrol stations for fishermen on the island of Tobago. When fishermen in Palatuvere raised the issues at a public day that I held in the community, I immediately sought the assistance of my colleagues. I wish to thank the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries and the Honorable Minister of Finance for their support. 2 filling stations specifically configured for fishermen will be constructed in Tobago. 1 in Tobago East and 1 in Tobago West. These petrol stations will contribute to the safety and well-being of our fishermen and provide immense relief to our fishing communities. Mr. Deputy Speaker, when the Minister of Finance announced the rollout of 24/7 access to health service at 3 health centers in rural communities in Trinidad, I approached the Honorable Chief Secretary and the Honorable Minister of Finance and advocated for the same in Tobago East. I am happy to report that both the Honorable Minister of Finance and the Honorable Chief Secretary have agreed to fund and support the establishment of a 24/7 health center in Tobago East. Tobago people, yes, we would have gone through our challenges. We'd have endured the pains, but we have things to celebrate. As I continue to note the development in Tobago East, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I wish to highlight the fact that the Tobago House of Assembly, through the Division of Infrastructure, Quarries and the Environment, has committed to the construction of a new jetty in Palatuve. It is important to note that demolition of the derelict jetty will commence shortly, and soon a new and improved jetty will be delivered to the people of Palatuve. Mr. Deputy Speaker, steps have been taken by the Division of Infrastructure, Quarries and the Environment to rehabilitate the jetty at Barbados Bay in Studley Park. This will facilitate movement of aggregate from the Studley Park quarry, which now boasts of an increase in production by over 200% since the restructuring of management and operations at that quarry. Aggregate from the quarry will help to expedite the construction of hallmark projects in Tobago, such as the new airport terminal and the Sandals and Beaches resorts. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Tobago Tourism Agency Limited, which was established in 2017 by the Tobago House of Assembly, has been working assiduously towards rebranding Destination Tobago and positioning Destination Tobago to become more competitive in the global market. During the month of October, the new branding will be unveiled with a new tagline, Tobago, Beyond Ordinary. Thus, setting the agenda for the development of a more vibrant, viable, and sustainable tourism industry. The Division of Tourism, Culture and Transportation, in its drive to enhance Destination Tobago and advance community tourism, recently upgraded the Speyside Beach facility and concessionaire area in March of 2018. In addition, a range of programs and activities aimed at stimulating knowledge and awareness of the tourism sector were developed. These initiatives include, but are not limited to, the establishment of a tourism youth club in 78% of secondary schools on the island of Tobago, and an island-wide signage exercise which provides historical information on various sites and attractions across the island. Mr. Deputy Speaker, during the school vacation period, music and pancams were held throughout the island. 213 children were able to benefit, including children in Tobago East and my own 3 children. In an inaugural Young Innovators Camp that was held during the vacation period, 30 young Tobagoanians would have been exposed to skills such as circuit design, animation, robotics, game, and app design, thus positioning our children at the forefront of technology and coding and creating a new generation of innovators in Tobago. 500 children in Tobago were able to participate in sports camps across the island. Sporting disciplines included football, cricket, netball, basketball, athletics, and tennis. Through these sport camps, we are hoping to identify future elite athletes who will go on to represent Tobago and Trinidad and Tobago in the international arena. The Tobago House of Assembly, through the Department of Education, hosted a holiday enrichment program for students who have scored under 30% at the SCA test. 70 participants were able to achieve remedial assistance, thus improving their readiness for a higher level of education. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I can say without fear of contradiction that the Tobago House of Assembly has been working with our students and our teachers to improve the outcome of our students when they do the SCA, the marks, as well as those who do the advanced, what I have called CXC in my days. And I really want to commend them for the work that they are doing to improve our young people and to also improve the education sector. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Sandals project and the construction of the new airport terminal will require skilled tradesmen and women. Towards this end, the Tobago House of Assembly introduced a construction certification program at the Roxborough Trade Center in February 2018. 30 participants are currently enrolled. 15 participants completed Level 1 certification with the National Examination Council, and the others are expected to complete during this month. A similar program has begun at the Tobago Technology Center in Canaan, and 60 participants have registered. Training is done in 4 industrial skill areas that have been deemed essential to the development of the construction sector in Tobago. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Roxborough Administrative Complex is close to completion, and I say thank you, Jesus. It was promised to the people of Roxborough and identified as a central development project. However, funds were not allocated. Through prudent fiscal management, the Tobago House of Assembly was able to identify funds and finance the construction of the Roxborough Administrative Complex. On completion within the next few months, this facility will improve access to services in Tobago East, particularly Windward Tobago. As a Roxborough girl, as a Roxborough native, I'm eternally grateful for the delivery of the administrative complex, as I know all too well how this will benefit the people of Windward Tobago, particularly our elderly and the disabled. Mr. Deputy Speaker, during last year's budget, I told the people of Tobago, particularly the people of rural Tobago East, that a fleet of new buses will be delivered. I am happy to report that the Honourable Minister of Works and Transport and the PTSC delivered. Custom-made buses were introduced to the route in Tobago East, and routes and schedules are expected to be revised to ensure that the service meets the needs of the traveling public. In terms of agriculture and food security on the island, I wish to report that a number of agricultural access roads were developed in areas such as Goodwood, Mason Hall, Roxborough, Belgarden, to name a few. And I'm not going to go through the list because I have done so at the mid-year. I would have gone through the entire list of what was done, what was planned for the benefit of Oropouche East, and I'm sure he could verify that. Mr. Deputy Speaker, all our farmers in Tobago will have the opportunity to access incentives outlined in the budget, and I wish to report that we have 10 acres of land in Roxborough under cultivation through the restructured unemployment relief program on the island. And produce from this project will be used primarily in the school nutrition program on the island. Additionally, cocoa production at the Roxborough estate has resumed utilizing labor from the URP, and there's a greater focus on utilizing the URP program to address Tobago's food security issues. There has been a concerted effort over the years to rebuild the entrepreneurial spirit of the people of Tobago, and millions have gone into developing training programs and providing financial and technical support to Tobagonians. Through the Division of Community Development, Enterprise Development and Labor, almost 3,000 Tobagonians successfully completed training in a number of vocational skills areas. In 2016, 552 persons graduated. In 2017, 772 persons graduated, an increase of 22%. In 2018, 1,059 persons will graduate at a ceremony planned for next week. And using 2016 as a baseline, this clearly demonstrates that there's a 92% increase in the number of Tobagonians availing themselves to training opportunities on the island. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the PNM-led Tobago House of Assembly didn't train Tobagonians and leave them at the wayside. Opportunities were created for graduates of the Vocational Skills Training Program and other entrepreneurs and artisans in Tobago to market themselves through the road market experience. Furthermore, financial support has been made available to small business owners and entrepreneurs in Tobago through the Tobago House of Assembly. And I can attest to that because I've had constituents come back to me and saying, thank you for giving us the information and giving us the forms. We were successful. So the Tobago House of Assembly is indeed working to build the capacity of our small business owners and entrepreneurs on the island. For that, I say thank you. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I have not even touched on the collaboration between the Office of the Prime Minister and the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development. I will speak to the fruits of our collaboration when I report on the activities that we would have collaborated with them at the Gender and Child Affairs Division. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the road ahead may present obstacles, but I wish to reassure my constituents that I will continue my roving office days and visits to schools in the constituency. I will continue to lend financial and in-kind support to projects and programs in the constituency that are aligned to the vision for an innovative, productive, and safe Tobago East. However, I wish to remind constituents that one hand can't clap. It is only through collaboration and genuine teamwork that we will be able to transform Tobago East one community at a time. Mr. Deputy Speaker, apart from my regular office days at my main office in Mason Hall and sub-office in Argyle, I've continued my roving office initiative and community walks with the constituency office team. Roving office days and walkabouts were held at Speyside, Belgarden, Palatuver, Roxborough, Castara, Mount Grace, Goodwood, Louisdore, Charleville, and Calder Hall, to name a few. A second free legal clinic was hosted in the constituency. This was done at Roxborough Anglican School, and it was made possible through the kind services of young professionals attached to the Heliconia Foundation. I thank them. Mr. Deputy Speaker, during the school vacation period, a first aid and safety workshop was hosted by the constituency office at the Goodwood Community Center, and certificates of participation were distributed to all participants. We had children from Mason Hall to Charleville attending the morning session. The adults who participated in the evening session were able to receive recognized certificates at a cost through a highly qualified and certified facilitator. Our facilitator, Mr. Dave Isaac, a certified trainer with the National Safety Council, would have distributed certificates to all participants who were successful, and those certificates are valid for 2 years. Mr. Deputy Speaker, yes, we would have had our challenges. Yes, we would have had our fair share of burdens, but Tobago and Tobago East would have flourished and developed to an extent under the People's National Movement. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I grew up always saying that ungracefulness is worse than witchcraft, so I want to express my gratitude on behalf of my constituents for all that we were able to benefit from. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I will now turn my attention to the achievements of the Office of the Prime Minister, Central Administrative Services in Tobago. The department continues to provide services to pensioners in Tobago by certifying their life certificates for onward transmission to Treasury in Trinidad so that they can continue to receive their pensions in a timely manner. The department also continues to look after the health and welfare of its employees with provision of after-school and vacation daycare services and a gym facility. The gym is also made available to Tobago's elite athletes. In May of this year, the department collaborated with the Financial Intelligence Unit of Trinidad and Tobago in hosting its 8th annual Anti-Money Laundering and Counter-Financing of Terrorism Conference at the Magdalena Grand Hotel. This was well attended by financial, real estate, security, and other business institutions in Tobago. For the second consecutive year, the department was able to collaborate with a number of stakeholders and successfully host the Republic Day Parade in Roxborough. This year, we had an overwhelming support from the people of Tobago. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I wish to place on the record my sincere gratitude to all who partner with us to bring joy to so many children and adults on Republic Day. In terms of support to the NGO community in Tobago, this continued with provision of financial assistance to 32 organizations on the island. A new file tracking system was purchased and will be implemented this month to improve function of the registry section. This will allow for more efficiency and accountability at the Office of the Prime Minister, Central Administrative Services, Tobago. The Registrar General's Office continues to provide services to the members of the public in the provision of birth, marriage, and death certificates, business registration, and company registration. The Weights and Measures Unit continued working in collaboration with the Bureau of Standards in Trinidad in the rollout of the new Metrology Act. Surveys were conducted on weighing and measuring instruments on the island, along with pumps at gas stations. On completion of the survey, a number of weighing instruments was certified. This certification exercise is ongoing and will eventually see all weights and measures instruments certified, along with the pumps at the gas stations, in order to bring them up to international standards. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, while things happen in Trinidad, Tobago is never left behind through the work of the Office of the Prime Minister, Central Administrative Services, Tobago. The Meteorological Unit completed its relocation to the new state-of-the-art facility located in Constant Trace and is currently in the process of acquiring new equipment to help with better weather prediction and reporting in accordance with the World Meteorological Organization and International Civil Aviation Organization standards. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I wish to turn my focus now to the importance of HIV and AIDS coordination. Let me first thank the Chair and members of the committee for their dedication and hard work, and the Secretariat for providing outstanding support to the National AIDS Coordinating Committee. The national response to HIV and AIDS is multi-pronged and multi-sectoral. It requires all hands on deck, and NAC is building capacity to ensure that all stakeholders can fully contribute to the response. To reduce the incidence of HIV infections in Trinidad and Tobago, the National AIDS Coordinating Committee has implemented the following measures. 1, prevention mapping exercise. 2, communications for behavioral impact or COMBI training workshop from September 10th to 15th at the International Waterfront Complex, in which 38 participants from governmental agencies and non-governmental organizations completed the training. NAC embarked on a pilot project in 2 communities, Tunapuna and San Fernando, aimed at sensitizing vulnerable and high-risk communities about the dual epidemics of HIV and AIDS and gender-based violence. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, I know you could attest to the success of that initiative, as your constituents would have benefited. The Office of the Prime Minister, in collaboration with the Tobago House of Assembly, the Tobago Regional Health Authority, non-governmental organizations, and other stakeholders, hosted a community prevention outreach under the theme, "It's beautiful to know. Know your numbers, know your status, care for yourself, your loved ones, and your community." This outreach was intended to increase the percentage of the population who have had an HIV test, as well as empower the people of Trinidad and Tobago to lead healthy lifestyles. The National AIDS Coordinating Committee worked with USAID to support the development of the HIV and AIDS Sustainability Plan, which will provide strategic guidance to the agencies involved in the response in the 2018-2019 period. NAC hosted a partners forum in collaboration with PAHO Through NAC's coordination of partners, the country stands to benefit from transparency, synergy, and alignment with the National HIV and AIDS National Strategic Plan. This coordination of investments by partners can greatly assist the state to sustain gains and improve the overall national response with wider impact in some cases. The NAC Secretariat has completed a National HIV and AIDS Monitoring and Evaluation Plan in collaboration with key stakeholders such as CAFA, Ministry of Health, the Central Statistical Office, and non-governmental organizations. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I now turn my attention to matters pertaining to gender and child affairs. Yesterday, during her contribution, the member for Couva North asked what would be Dr. Rowley's legacy. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I am not easily impressed and have a bad habit of not taking people at face value. I might be called a doubting Thomas in some instances. I have to really feel people out before I buy into them and trust them and, respect. I often examine the spirit behind people's words and their actions before I make a determination on their character. Whenever I have discussions with the Honorable Prime Minister, I am often reminded of my own father. He may not always make a point the way we want to hear it, but the message is always sincere and from the heart. Mr. Deputy Speaker, when it comes to matters pertaining to children and women, two of our most vulnerable groups in society, there is no compromise with this Prime Minister. And this has been demonstrated through some of the policy measures implemented under his leadership. The first draft of the National Child Policy has been completed. This is the first of its kind in the region and should set a framework to provide adequate and suitable legislation, services, and infrastructure that would ensure the rights of the child. The policy will serve as the umbrella policy to introduce separate sub-policies, including the Child Protection Policy and National Strategic Framework for Child Protection, the Children in Alternative Care Policy, the Nursery Policy, Early Childhood Development Policy, Framework for the Care and Protection of Children with Disabilities, and Vacation Camp Manual and Guidelines. I remember at a breakfast roundtable celebration we had for International Women's Day, and I had to leave, but I wanted to talk, and I said to the NGO sector, because they often tell me they admire my passion and drive for the work, and I said, you know what? I feed off of my boss. For me, it is an honor to serve as a junior minister in the office of the Prime Minister because his direction, his leadership, and his passion motivates me to every day go out and give my best. Yeah. Mr. Deputy Speaker, whenever issues arise, I will get a call. Ayanna, fix it. Ayanna, talk to them. Ayanna, make it happen. That is the passion and the commission and dedication of this Prime Minister. Mr. Deputy Speaker, noting the importance of training for persons who directly interface with these children, a 9-month community residences train-the-trainer program was held in collaboration with the Children's Authority based on research on the needs and gaps within community residences. Child rights and protection train-the-trainer sessions were held with all the community residences in Trinidad, and over a 9-month period in the fiscal year of 2016-2017. There was a high level of collaboration among the homes, the Children's Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, and the Youth Training Center. Professionals volunteered as facilitators, while the Children's Authority provided some of the facilitators for this initiative. 100 trainers were trained, who in turn trained staff within their community residences. A total of 41 residences received training, and over 17 topics were covered. A 3-month caregiver training program was held in association with the Trinidad and Tobago Registered Nurses Association to provide caregivers with the needed skills for employment within community residences. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we don't just make laws. We ensure we put the framework in place to support the laws. And I want to commend the Attorney General, for the package of children's legislation, and for all the work has been doing and the collaboration with the Office of the Prime Minister. I really want to commend the Children's Authority as well, because despite the, the cutbacks, they have found innovative ways to ensure that we meet the needs of the children of Trinidad and Tobago. And we will continue to ensure that we put the framework in place to ensure that the rights of our nation's children are always protected. A total of 48 caregivers have been trained thus far and prepared for employment within community residences. Of the 48, 17 are male. And I want to just pause here a while and talk to the people of Tobago again. When we were doing this caregiver training program, I asked my permanent secretary for us to make arrangements to facilitate Tobagoans to benefit from the training. So we had a special ad go out. We noticed that we would provide accommodation for the Tobagonians as well as the stipend. And I think 2 Tobagonians applied. And out of the 2, 1 would have been able to go through the process, and that young man is now gainfully employed at one of our children's homes. So whenever opportunities come up, my fellow Tobagonians, I urge you all to please grasp these opportunities. We must not be left behind. In terms of adoption, 23 of the 46 adoption requests received were processed. 9 adoption orders were granted, which comprised 2 closed and 7 open cases. As it pertains to foster care, the foster care unit received over 100 expressions of interest. However, that only translated into 24 applications, with 5 receiving approval to provide foster care. And that is why, in the month of September, we would have designated Foster Care and Adoption Awareness Month. Because while we know there's a place and a role for community residences, we understand this government recognizes the importance of every child having the ability to live in a beautiful, stable, loving home, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The foster care unit continues to provide support to all the units that are involved in the removal of children because of emergencies, and continues to seek to reunite children with their families where possible, appropriate, and is the best interest of the child. As a result, over 240 supervised access visits were conducted over the period between children and their birth families to encourage reintegration. In terms of the closure of St. Michael's, and I really want to talk about the St. Michael thing, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I am that old. But for the years I have on this earth, I always heard about St. Michael's. And most of the time, it was never a good story. Government come, government go, nobody brave enough to take the bull by the horn. That's right. If you're not working, if the staff not functioning, if the boys aren't being cared for, close it down. Find someplace else to put them. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this government, this cabinet, this Prime Minister was brave enough to do it. All the residents were successfully transitioned to appropriate alternative placement, which included family reintegration, fit persons, and alternate community residences. Yes. Child protection sensitization was conducted with cricket coaches, bus drivers, guidance officers, school social workers, and special education teachers, all of whom are listed as duty bearers in the law. This was sponsored primarily by UNICEF. Cohorts from each group were trained as trainers to ensure all persons in the profession receive the information. To date, 180 coaches, 194 bus drivers, and 144 student support services have been trained. A total of 40 billboards were erected in areas of high foot traffic and motor vehicle traffic in every regional corporation and electoral district in Trinidad and Tobago. Through the wrapped buses and the billboards, which also contain a child abuse prevention message and contact numbers, approximately 69,000 children throughout Trinidad and Tobago would have been reached. And because we build relationship with our partners, this was funded by UNICEF, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Child abuse awareness posters were delivered to every regional health authority, library, community center, and school district for display in high traffic areas for health care and education. These posters were able to reach the general public, and again, this was funded by UNICEF. Under the Child Protection League Information Fair, 500 children and 200 adults were educated. This was a research-based, interactive, and educational fair that sought to highlight all the governmental and non-governmental agencies that provide child-related services. Its aim was to ensure children knew what agencies to report child abuse to. A designated portion of the fair was interactive in nature, which allowed students and adults to engage in learning through creativity, technology, problem solving, critical thinking, and group sessions. It followed the theme of the comic, The Justice League, with each major agency being assigned a character based on their role in child protection. This initiative, again, was fully funded by UNICEF. UNICEF's first regional work planning meeting with child protection focal points was held in Trinidad and Tobago on August 14 to 16, 2018. 52 persons from 11 countries were represented, along with 2 specially invited UNICEF guests from the United Kingdom. The 3-day meeting consisted of plenary sessions, country presentations, working groups, an overview of the regional findings and child protection initiatives, and 2 site visits to the Children's Authority Assessment Center and the Children and Family Division of the High Court of Trinidad and Tobago. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I often hear them saying about the cutbacks in different ministries, but while we might have had some cutbacks at the Office of the Prime Minister, Gender and Child Affairs, we'd have collaborated, as I said, with our international partners so we could still be able to deliver the programs and initiatives. And I really want to thank UNICEF for always responding to our call. Whenever we have an idea and we don't have the money, UNICEF comes to the rescue and to the benefit of the children of Trinidad and Tobago. The Children's Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, as it related to providing adequate care and protection of the children, has responded immediately to over 360 reports of child abuse and commissioned work on the Tobago Assessment Center and the Tobago Child Support Center, and it handed over a building to house the South Regional Office and Assessment Center. So, Cuba, North, and my colleagues on the other side, you all weren't left out. In doing all this good work for the nation's children, we made sure to include those, including Naparima. The payment per child policy enables equitable financial assistance to be provided to all community residences on a payment per child basis. Moreover, the system that this policy supports ensures that all children in need of care and protection have access to quality care in every community residence in Trinidad and Tobago. Through this policy, the individual needs of each child in community residences are met. The only condition for accessing this funding was that the CR of the community residence be licensed or progressing towards being licensed. This past year, 25 community residences and an average of 363 children benefited from this policy at a cost of $6,525,032. The community residences that benefited include A Bridge of Hope, Amica House, Angels of Hope Children's Foundation, Casa de Corazon, Chickland Children's Home, Coover Children's Home and Crisis Nursery, Credo Foundation for Justice, Credo Development Center, Credo Foundation for Justice, Sophia House, Society of St. Vincent de Paul, Cyrus Nursery, Dar Earl Aman, Freeport Children's Home, El Shaddai Restoration Home for Children, Ezekiel Home for Abandoned Children, Ferndine's Place Children's Home, Haven of Hope, Jireh House, Joshua House, Mothers Union Children's Home, Living Water Community, Our Lady of the Wayside, Rafa House, Rainbow Rescue, Sri Jayalashmi Children's Home Limited, the Hope Center, the Islamic Home for Children Incorporated, the Margaret Kisto Children's Home, and the Vishok Bhavan. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I now wish to report on some of the achievements of the Gender Affairs Division. The draft National Policy on Gender and Development was laid as a green paper in the Parliament on the 9th day of March 2018. On March 28, 2018, women's and men's organizations would have met with staff of the Office of the Prime Minister to discuss the draft National Policy on Gender and Development and the action plan to be implemented to support the policy. At the meeting, a 21-member voluntary steering committee was established, consisting of representatives from women's and men's organizations, the Equal Opportunity Commission, the Institute of Gender and Development Studies of the University of the West Indies, to formalize the action plan. Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Member, at this time your initial speaking time has expired. You have an additional 10. You care to avail yourself?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy
Kindly
Speaker.
Proceed.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Barbershop Initiative, coming out of the Gender Affairs Division, targeted males aged 14 years and older and was piloted within specific communities and schools. The Gender Affairs Division conducted the barbershop initiatives for the following organizations or institutions during the period of April to June 2018. 4 communities, Sobo Village, Los Bajos, 5 Rivers, and Malabar. 3 schools, Gasparillo Secondary, Malabar Secondary, and 5 Rivers Secondary. 1 protective service organization, that is the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, through the establishment of a civil society working group with specific emphasis on male issues. A forum was created to disseminate information regarding the implementation of existing or new initiatives targeting all men and boys. We recognize that in order to address issues of gender inequality, that the conversation cannot just be led by women. We must have our men involved. And it's for this reason that we would have placed a lot of focus in this last fiscal year in engaging our men and our boys in our communities to ensure that we have a well-rounded response to the whole issue of gender inequality in Trinidad and Tobago. Representatives from over 20 predominantly male-focused civil society organizations were invited to participate in a bi-monthly meeting, and a total of 4 meetings were held for the period of January to September 2018. The Gender Affairs Division continues its efforts to mainstream gender equality and equity into all activities of government, civil society, and private sector by conducting various activities. On Saturday, 9th December 2017, the Gender Affairs Division conducted a half-day outreach training session on Understanding Your Gender with youth in the Cocoreed community based on requests from the Ministry of Sport and Youth Affairs at the Youth Resource and Information Center. On Tuesday, 20th February 2018, the Gender Affairs Division, in collaboration with the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force Reserves, conducted a half-day workshop session on why gender sensitivity matters at the Reserve's headquarters in Makarib, Chaguaramas. On 22nd February 2018, a half-day workshop titled Gender Awareness in the Public Service, a participatory workshop, was held, and it basically targeted gender focal points of 20 government ministries and agencies. On the 22nd of May 2018, a one-day workshop was held on building gender awareness and sensitivity in state agencies for gender focal points. 33 gender focal points from 11 state agencies attended. In April of 2018, a one-day workshop was held on gender mainstreaming and analysis and gender budgeting for the gender focal points at our ministries. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this is just a snapshot of the work of the Office of the Prime Minister, Gender and Child Affairs. We acknowledge that there's still a lot of work to be done, but today I give our commitment that we will get it done, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, one thing I can say about this PNM team is we are effective and we are result-oriented. If I can find one fault, it would be for not boasting enough about what we do, how we do it, and why we do it. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as I close, I want to remind all of Trinidad and Tobago and all of us in this honorable house, we were selected for this season, and our Prime Minister and political leader was selected for this time. And we have a duty to serve the people of Trinidad and Tobago to the best of our ability. However, the people of Trinidad and Tobago also have a duty to us that has been decreed by God. Romans chapter 13, verse 1 states, and I quote, "Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God." I call on the people of Trinidad and Tobago, let us put aside our differences and work together for the sake of our country and in honor of the Most High God. Let us restore peace and love and unity, and together we can all see our nation grow from strength to strength. I often tell people there's something significant and beautiful behind the name Trinidad and Tobago. We are named and patterned after the Trinity. We are destined for greatness. We have greatness in us. It is for all of us to really work together, put aside our differences as citizens, and truly collaborate in the best interest of our children and our children's children, so that future generations, when they are writing the pages of history, they will give us a good account. Mr. Deputy Speaker, with these few words, I thank you.
Members, at this time, would be a good time for us to suspend for lunch. The member for Chaguanas East has already identified to me that he will like to enter the debate. So when we resume for lunch, you will have the opportunity. So we'll resume at 2 p.m., members.